been working tirelessly to prepare this evening's event. I would like to welcome Sandy MacDonald,
just a bit of technical things first. The school history books, which have been printed out and sitting on the desk, they're available for editing. Okay, you can scribble, edit, do what you like on them, and we'll end up with about an 850-page ebook that is freely available. I worked out how much it would cost to provide a hard copy book. To the printers to print one would cost you $400. If they printed 20, it would cost you $110. So we'll look at just doing the e-book, and so that's up to you to go through that, have a look, make corrections, make additions, raise your eyebrows, whatever you want on that. After this weekend, those 4 volumes, one is the enrollment volume and the other 3 are the school ones, will be sitting in the Huntley Library. And we'll be there until February next year. You can go in and do whatever editing, reading that you wish to do. Okay, now's the time to fall asleep, but please don't snore. I was born in the Huntley Maternity Home in Upland Road and was taken by my mother to the family's concert hut on the southern shore of Lake Kimihia to join my older sister Stancy. She's sitting at the back there. My father had secured a job as a heavy machinery operator at the lake as Downland Company, had the contract to expose the underground coal workings by constructing a coffer dam to enable the drainage of the large section of the lake and opening up a pit down to the 10-metre thick sloping layer of coal. By the way, I'm reading my notes because some of you may have noticed I've got a little bandage on the top there. That's my forgetfulness valve. The more I learn, it's like a bucket full of water. What I learn goes in, the other stuff flows out. So that's what that is, amnesia valve. We lived in the hut until about 1948. The home was close enough to the lake so you could put it right out the window and go fishing in the lake without leaving the house. About 1949, we moved into a new suite of buildings. The Kimihia house is about 7 buildings there, just overlooking the mine. And it was built exclusively for the mine workers. So that home that we lived in was about 400 metres away from the school, which is sat overlooking the lake. I vividly remember my first day at school on July the 10th, 1950. I don't look that old, do I? But never mind. Marion and I have the same colour here. I didn't want to go to school. And I saw my mother pluck a large twig out of the hedge on the side of our building and come towards me with this switch. I kept just enough ahead of her to get up to school, up through the paddock of the school. We could either go to school over the paddock, along a bit of roadway, then over the paddock, or along the roadway itself all the way. But it was gravel road and traffic I'm not too sure what to do. When I got to the school fence, Mum was about probably 10 metres behind me. I looked across over the fence and I saw my sister's playmate, Joyce Davidson. Took one look and I was through the fence like a rocket. Didn't even say goodbye to Mum, and I was at school. My memories about being in a single room class school with all levels are very sparse. But I remember that succession of teachers that I had, Mr. Parsonage, Mr. Wally, Mr. Bartlett, and Mr. Pat Lawless. The room was unclad and depended on its warmth in winter from a potbelly stove, situated just inside the classroom door. To keep the temperature down in summer, the windows were slid up, allowing the breeze to cool the room. If you want to actually walk through one of these buildings, go to Mystery Creek. There's a similar one there. The senior boys in winter were given the duty of firing up the stove before 9 AM using the coal that was supplied by the mine. There was a competitive spirit in getting the stove to put out as much heat as possible. This was measured by how high up the internal chimney you could get the red glow to appear. The stove was used to heat the free milk that we received from the government in glass bottles, little half-pint ones, so that warm cocoa could be available at playtime. In summer, the milk, which was stored in a box by the gate, sat there soaking up the sun. And so the milk, by the time you got the milk, it was tepid. Anybody love tepid milk? Don't let me know. Each pupil was required to consume their bottle of milk, but in the summer the milk was so warm that much of it was secretly tipped out by their pupils when the teacher wasn't watching. In the mornings before leaving home, I breakfasted on a plate of Weet-Bix, then prepared my lunch, which was mainly a couple of jam sandwiches and sometimes a piece of fruit. Occasionally my lunchbox was boosted by leftovers from the previous evening meal. I took no drink to school because you could get the water from the tank beside the school. Now the trek to school was generally along the road parallel to the railway line, the mine line I'm talking about, and then via a shortcut up and across the paddock to the school. Now travelling along Kimihia Road was potentially hazardous, as the traffic could be a danger to us from coal trucks, taxis and service vehicles travelling both ways on what was a very narrow gravel roadway. The taxi that we utilised at times to get into Huntley was driven by a very popular driver, Tommy Williams. In the cold of winter, we looked for the chance of warming our freezing feet while travelling through the paddock by hunting for and locating fresh cow pats, removing our sandals or shoes and standing in the sloppy fresh droppings until our feet had warmed up. We found the cow pats, the best ones are the ones that were sort of misty. It's coming off. The only disadvantage to this method of warming up was having to wash the manure off our feet under the cold water tap outside the school cloakroom, dropping the temperature of our feet back to square one. If we failed to do a good job with the washing of our feet, we would carry the smell with us into the classroom, which did not go down too well with the other pupils and the teacher. In class, I recall the daily chanting of both the alphabet and the times tables. We learned from the 2 times up to the 12 times. The young ones are wondering why we learnt the 12 times. We had to remember that 12 pennies made a shilling before it went to decimal. We read all that off a big chalkboard. Swimming lessons, we did have an occasional swimming lesson at school. That was down on the lake. We competed with eels, ducks, fish, and the lake's reed vegetation. In 1953, I shared the classroom with my older sister Stancy and my younger sister Christine. My first teacher, Mr. Partridge, lived in a Johnson Farm cottage on the junction of Kimihia Road and James Road. The house is still there, big well used. That was about 500 metres away from the school. Mrs. Partridge used her sitting room in that house as a classroom for the girls to do sewing, while the boys used the school shelter shed for fret sewing patterned plywood sheets to construct models like aeroplanes and boats and stuff. I recall the Radio to Schools program, where the whole school would listen to 30 minutes of radio time once a week. I think it was a Thursday morning. Including in the listening was singing practice. When I rose through the ranks to Form 1, I had the responsibility of topping up the ink wells each morning, as we had graduated from pencils to ink pens, with the pens with small reservoirs inside. Playtime was often spent in the shelter shed, climbing up the junction of the internal walls, or getting involved in marbles, knucklebones, or chasing games on the field. In the mid-50s, Pat Lawless became the teacher. His home was a new house erected just across the road from the school. Classes were frequently interrupted by the very loud noise of coal trucks grinding their way up the hill and past the school, or the empty ones using their low gears to slow down when heading down the hill towards the mine. To this day, I don't know how the trucks passed each other as they went to and from the mine. The road was so narrow. In the mid-50s, we were informed that a visit to Kimihia mine would take place by the Governor-General, Sir Willoughby Murray. When the time came near for his journey past the school, we hung out by the roadside fence and watched him cruise slowly by in his chauffeured Rolls Royce. We shared waves as the luxury car glided past on the narrow, dusty and potholed mine road. On a few occasions we were permitted to head outside when we heard a passenger plane approaching from Auckland, heading for the Hamilton Airport. The planes were turboprop and we could hear them coming from a long distance away. They were low enough for us to read the brand on the side of the plane, T-E-A-L, TEAL, which stood for Tasman Empire Airways Limited. Not too long after that, it became Air New Zealand. The flights were so infrequent that it was exciting to be able to watch and wave at the flying rarity. On one occasion, we watched a group of jet aircraft shoot past overhead and were fascinated and puzzled by the fact that the planes flew past silently before the noise of their engines appeared to follow behind. The only two school trips I can recall, and I think we had several, a few more, was one to the Huntley Brickworks, where we could see the stamping and firing of bricks made from local clay. It is interesting to note that when the original school closed at the end of 1966, the grounds were dug up for the clay that the brickworks were needed. So if those of you with long memories go back over there, the shape of the ground is totally different. The other was a sports trip to the small school at Island Block, somewhere near the east of Mary Power Site. I've been over there a couple of times. I can't find where the school was or is. There is a Mary primary school there in the village, but Island Block doesn't seem to exist. Now, I can remember my first and only strap. The situation was that on the previous Saturday, a farmer had brought his tractor onto the school property to mow the lawn. The long lengths of cut grass had been raked into one area by the farmer towards the northern end of the school property. That was about 75 metres away from the schoolhouse. At playtime on the following Monday, we older boys discovered the clippings and began to construct a fort. We were so involved in the activity that we did not hear the school bell ring that signalled the end of playtime. In failing to turn up, we were subsequently lined up and given 2 strokes with a leather strap onto our outstretched palms. I bawled my eyes out and immediately ran straight for home. My mum returned her reluctant son that same lunch hour. In my senior Form 1 and 2 classes, we attended manual training once a week in the manual training building at Huntley Primary. That required a lengthy bike ride along the gravelly Kimihia road, avoiding any following or oncoming traffic. They had to pull over and stand in the ditch if any cars were seen to come, or trucks. And that happened until we got from the Kimihia school to the junction with Russell Road, which is just down there. The remaining danger was still there, walking down the road, down Russell Road until it hit Hakanoa Street. Now, if you would be familiar, you had Russell Road and there's a reasonably steep hill that flattens out before you hit Hakanoa Street. My bicycle didn't have trustworthy brakes. So by the time I got to that crossroads, if I was going too fast, I couldn't get around the corner, so I would have to head straight ahead. Now, Russell Road goes for a short distance and then is stopped by the railway line. That used to be a railway crossing until somebody got killed on it and they blocked it off. Now, luckily, I had enough brake power to stop. We spent as a family a year in Taihape before coming back, and we lived in a place called 12 Russell Road, which was Len Ross's original home, that first home on Russell Road. A few years later, that became 21 Russell Road. Anybody lived in 21 Russell Road? Now, walking to school, we had to walk down Russell Road and into a farmer's driveway. That driveway is now McVie Road. So we walked down there, all the way down to the railway line, across along the railway line, and up the road to the school. The driveway, that land that we walked past, we are now sitting on, now a school property. If you didn't like to school, you had to walk and be aware of the coal trains, so you make sure you survived to get to school. And if the train was coming, which it really did, you would have to leap off the line into the swamp on the side. There were no tracks. Occasionally I made use of my bike, which boasted balloon tyres, and headed from Russell Road to the school along Kimihia Road. Part of the journey I didn't like was we got as far as where the water tank is now by the Yates's farm gate, and then the long strip down there with gravel, and my bike would not slow down, and I dreaded coming off the bike right down near letterbox number 171 and aquaplaning on my stomach along the gravel road. So I never came off the bike, so I survived. My 1957 Form 2 class, my last year at school, this comprised me and Glenys Wilkinson. She was the daughter of the mine manager. And one work job, I don't think you teachers would probably do this, Glenys and I were given our week's work written in a notebook by Mr. Bartlett. And we had a look, and there was the English, maths, social studies, science, what we had to achieve each day. I love my maths so much that I did the whole week's worth of maths in one day until I got growled at. I was supposed to follow the pattern. The year of 1957 was the school's 100th birthday. All the pupils worked hard in preparing displays, and I constructed a large dragon, or I think it was a dragon or an ancient beastie, out of plasticine. Does plasticine still exist these days? And placed it on the table along with the other displays beside a window where it could be brightly lit. My job was to supervise the displays while the reunion activities went on outside, prior to the adults coming back to see what we had done. As the sun streamed into the room and across the table, I saw my dragon slowly softening and sagging to form a blob on the plate. My creation had died. I did not know that December the 10th, 1977, excuse me, 77? No, my last day at school, I think I got that date wrong, 1957. I went from there, I attended Huntley College for 2 years, followed by 2 years at the Hamilton Teachers College, where I trained as a primary teacher. I taught learned there. I went to back to Huntley West to learn to get certified, and got the job back at my old school, Kimihia. There were 3 of us. Principal Mick Mather taking the senior class in the original building, me with the middle school of premise 3, 4, standard 1 and 2 in the prefab, and Marion Bogey in the second prefab with the new entrants and juniors. I can't recall much about my teaching time, just that I loved my class of semi-perfect pupils who are there today in their mid-60s. One incident that remains with me, I had assigned the class a job to do, although it was an easy job, and I had put 4 bags of lollies on a shelf by my desk. I said to the kids, the first 4 that finished their work could come and grab a bag of lollies. Bad mistake. No sooner had I turned my back and sat down, the boys got up and rushed through the desk to grab the lollies. The chairs went flying, the desks went flying, there were shouts and screams, there were little injuries. I never tried that trick again. I'll jump some things here. When I was teaching at the school, I was living at 21, and I had my 21st birthday, quite spooky, and my grandfather's will had left me enough money to buy a little car so I could drive to school. And that was a lot better. I parked it where the students of the earlier days had hitched their horses when they rode over the school paddocks. The road past the school didn't appear until 1943. That was about nearly 50 years after the school had been built. You had to go over the paddocks. If there were angry animals in the paddock, you had a problem. Now, what I'd like to do is just like to read out my class list, and one of my students is here. It's interesting looking at a student of yours that looks as old as you do. Okay, let's go through the list. Some of the female names may be changed, but Carlo Ashby, Dean Carroll, Jimmy Carter, Belle May Daly, Patricia Dark, Mark Foster, Eleanor Giles, Kevin Hart, and the most famous Brett Holland. Wave your hand, Brett. There he is. Debbie Holland, Bronwyn Jones, Catherine Kendrick, Pamela Kendrick, Kevin Leach, Brenda Martin Smith, Ewan Nicholson, Holly Perry, Stuart Quigley, Sandra Rakels, who is my next door neighbour, number 21. The birthday girl, I don't think she's here, she's Nikki Ryburn. She has her birthday today. I won't say how many 60 she is. Wendy Watney and Carol White. And lastly, I'd just like to say that there was a few eyebrows to raise when I walked into the school property wearing a school shirt. And the kids are wondering, what class am I in? Thank you for listening.